All right, let's get right into it. We've all heard scary stories about the woods, right? But have you ever really stopped to think about what makes them so effective? Why they get under our skin? That's what we're going to do. We're going to dissect 5 absolutely chilling stories to understand the mechanics of fear itself. And what you'll find is that all these stories, as different as they are, they're all connected. They share these common threads that tap into our deepest, most primal fears. You know, the kind of fear our ancestors felt huddled around a fire, just staring out into that dark space between the trees. So that's the big question for us today. We're not just here to tell scary stories and get spooked. No, we're here to look behind the curtain. We're going to analyze the actual blueprint of horror, breaking down exactly how these stories build that sense of dread and mess with our minds. Let's start with maybe the most universal fear of all, that prickly feeling on the back of your neck, the one that tells you you're being watched. It's like this ancient alarm bell in our brains that suddenly flips a switch and says, hey, you are no longer the one doing the looking. You are the one being looked at. I mean, just think about Bob's wife. It's broad daylight, she's just a few feet away from her family, but she's in a vulnerable position, and bam, it just hits her. There's no sound, there's nothing to see, just this sudden, cold certainty that eyes are on her. And this isn't just something in your head, right? It's a full-body experience. Look at Park Ranger Mike. It wasn't a thought. It wasn't him wondering, is someone there? No, it was an immediate physical reaction. All the hairs on his body standing up, his body was screaming danger long before his brain even had a chance to process it. And then you have the absolute worst-case scenario, when that feeling turns out to be 100% real. For Evan and his cousin, this wasn't paranoia. The proof was right there in the snow the next morning. Footprints, tucked right into the blind spot under their living room window. The watchers were real, and they were terrifyingly close. Okay, so feeling watched is one thing, but the fear really ramps up when the threat starts interacting with the world around you. This is where these stories take perfectly normal, mundane objects and just twist them into something intelligent and malevolent. Just look at the pattern here. This isn't random. This isn't an animal. Katie's camping supplies aren't stolen or knocked over. They're meticulously arranged in a perfect pyramid. Bob finds a solid steel propane tank flattened like a soda can. And Bella, she finds a dead animal turned into this grotesque, ritualistic piece of art. These aren't acts of nature. They imply an intelligence and a purpose that is just deeply, deeply unsettling. So this is a perfect example of what psychologists call the uncanny. It's why a cooler stacked in a pyramid is so much scarier than a cooler that's just been knocked over. Our brains are wired to see patterns. And when we see something familiar, but it's been altered in an intelligent but totally alien way, it just sets off all the alarm bells. The object is familiar, but what's been done to it feels wrong. This brings us to the next level of fear. The threat is no longer just a feeling or a weird object. Now it's crossing a boundary. It's violating our safe spaces. Katie's story is just a terrifying case study in this. Her tent, that thin piece of nylon, is her entire world, her only sanctuary. First, she hears the footsteps getting closer. Then, the sound of breathing, right on the other side of the fabric. The psychological barrier is broken. But then, a hand reaches in through the zipper and actually touches her. That fragile sense of safety is just completely gone, shattered. And we see the exact same thing in Evan's story. A house is supposed to be the ultimate fortress, right? But the intruders, they use the architecture of the house against them. That blind spot, they got right up against the glass, completely unseen. The threat wasn't just in the woods, it was literally touching the walls of their safe space. So all of this buildup, the feeling, the objects, the invasion, it all has to lead somewhere. And that brings us to the final stage, the confrontation. The suspense is over, and the source of the terror is finally stepping out of the shadows. Look at how quickly everything just unravels for Bella. At 6 p.m., it's just a normal walk in the woods. By 8:15, she finds that horrible beaver. And just 5 minutes after that, she hears the bell and is literally running for her life. This just shows you how fast a situation can go from just uneasy to a full-blown fight for survival. She's been running frantically. She's completely out of breath. She just can't run anymore. And the sound of that bell is right behind her. She knows this is it. She has to face whatever has been hunting her. So she stops. And in this moment of just pure terror, she slowly turns around. And there it is.
A tall, dark figure steps into the clearing. And the source of that awful bell sound? It's a bell tied to its waist, ringing like crazy with every single step it takes towards her. The abstract fear, that sound in the dark, now has a horrifying physical form.
So after we've broken down all these elements, the feeling of being watched, the uncanny objects, the invasion, the confrontation, we're left with one huge lingering question. What exactly was out there? But when you try to piece together the evidence, you just hit a wall. It's totally contradictory. On one hand, you've got a rope, a folded t-shirt, clues that point to a human, right? Maybe a very disturbed person, like the police thought. But then, how do you explain the impossible inhuman strength it would take to flatten a steel propane tank? Or Bella's description of the figure's movement as abnormal and off, something not quite human? Ultimately, these stories don't give us a clear answer. And maybe that's the whole point. The horror that really sticks with us is the horror that remains unexplained. So after breaking down the anatomy of these fears, the question comes back to you. What do you believe was lurking out there between the trees?